I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the New Forest. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at Ashley Walk. It's a few miles to the east of Fordingbridge in the northwest corner of the forest. And today we're going to be doing a roughly 3-mile circular route to the south. Now I know regular viewers will be saying, hang on Dave, haven't you done a walk here before? And I have. But in that video I was really concentrating on the history of the area when it was a bombing range during the Second World War. Today we're going to be doing a slightly different route anyway, including look at PITTS Wood, much more of a countryside walk. Now you can see I'm squinting in the sun. It's a glorious sunny morning. I'm filming in the middle of June. There was a bit of a mist about first thing, but it's all burning off now and it's going to be quite a very warm day later on. Perfect for walking. So do come along with us. Well, I've parked my car at the Forestry Commission car park at Ashley Walk. And as I'm heading south, just down a gravel track known as Snake Road, and as I head down into the valley we do get some quite smashing views for some way. So if I just turn the camera around, show you what I'm looking at. So this is, well, that's looking directly north and then panning round to the east. You can probably just see a car going across the top of the ridge there. That's Roger Penny Way, one of the main routes across the forest from Fordingbridge to Cadnam. And then it's quite an open area in this northern part of the forest, and that's looking to the south. Cockley Hill, which we're just about to go up. We're going to follow the gravel track up there. And again, slowly panning round. This is looking to my right, which is in the west, and the ridge in the far distance is the Hampton Ridge. Well, as you can see, this is a popular haunt for some New Forest ponies, all swishing their tails and their manes, having a lot of problems with flies. And of course, we might see some foals today, but I say it's been quite an interesting change in the New Forest over the last couple of years or so. Normally each May they put out round about 15 stallions into the forest. Each stallion is given its own separate area to look after, as it were, and they're put out for 5-6 weeks or so, sort of mid-May onwards. And then obviously with the gestation period of a pony or horse being 11 months, the foals will normally be born sort of April, May time the following year. But last year during the pandemic, so what would that have been, 2020, only 10 stallions were put out, presumably so that there will be fewer foals this year. And sure enough, anecdotally, I've seen a lot fewer. Interesting enough, this year, 2021, they've put out 20 stallions to make up for it. And the stallion for this particular area, I forget his name, but he's a grey, and I have seen him about. I mean, I tend to keep well away from them and sort of let them get on with their business, as it were. And the other change, I say normally they're put out for 5 or 6 weeks. This year they were put out mid-May, and they are going to stay out until mid-July, so the poor chap's going to be exhausted. Well, just at the bottom of the valley, this is normally quite a free-flowing stream, Ditchend Brook, that will eventually flow into the River Avon over in the west, but this time of year, bone dry. So Logan won't be having a dip today. We have spotted a little foal. Now I'm not going to get too close, they really need to be left alone, but that one's quite young as well, quite a late one. Love the colour. It's hiding behind the grey. So keeping my distance, and of course you should never touch them, and certainly never feed them. And I think it's a little boy. I love that colour, I really do. Well, that's a lovely sight looking back north. I don't know where the sun's gone. It's very warm and quite humid. I'm just panning here a lovely little area of holly, and all the trees look like little hats really. Where you have the browsing line where, you know, the ponies will eat the holly up to a certain level, so you have this gap before the main branches appear further up. Well, I have no idea what type of fungi that is. I'm no expert, but it's certainly a very colourful one. Okay, we'll reach the top of Cockley Hill, and just over on my left is Little Cockley Plain, and on the right is Great Cockley Plain. Well, the origin of the name Ashley Walk. Walk is an obsolete administrative subdivision of the New Forest. There were about 15 walks, I believe, and created in the 18th century. And the walks were effectively subdivisions of, well, initially 6 bailiwicks, and then there became 9 bailiwicks. So Ashley Walk is, I believe it's the most northerly of the walks, and indeed its boundaries match that of the God's Hill bailiwick. Wow, this is a lovely view, looking to the south and also the southwest, and the woods in the very far distance, PITTS Wood, which we'll be heading into on our return journey. Now, the whole area around here is well, it will be quite popular with bees later on in the summer, and indeed just over on the brow of that hill is an area called Hive Garn Bottom, because, well, centuries ago there would have been bee gardens here, which were basically earthworks that were sort of rectangular in shape, only about 5 yards by 7 yards, basically just designed to protect the bees. And the reason is, round here, so in a couple of months' time, the heather will all be this beautiful purple colour, which the bees would love. And they do still bring up portable hives to this area to make use of that heather pollen. It makes very, very good honey, apparently. Now, a few viewers have recently been asking how my new puppy Fiver is coming along. He's growing nicely. He's already having a few walks in the forest. Obviously can't join me and Logan just yet, but I'll at the end of this video I'll put a little bit of film footage up on one of his first walks in the forest. Oh, now we're just heading slightly downhill, coming off Lodge Hill, I think it's called. Now each walk that I was talking about earlier would have had a master keeper, normally a member of the local gentry, and they in turn would have had a resident groomkeeper whose home would have been well, pretty much central in the walk. So this area here, Ashley Walk, would have had a groomkeeper living in a lodge, and it was originally somewhere down here. Well, just before we try and explore the area where the groomkeeper's lodge used to be, I've done a little bit of a detour to show you something just here on my left. And there's some old wooden posts going along there, and then going at right angles down here, and this just marks a little area of land that would have been set aside for the groomkeeper, either to hold stock. I imagine that's what it's for. I wouldn't have thought this particular area looks that good for growing any sort of crop, as it's now turned to bog. But yeah, imagine those wooden posts are quite a few decades, if not centuries old. Now, I don't know if you can see down here, there's this rather colourful little plant, and this is called a sundew, before Logan sits on it. It's not a very good example of one, but it really loves boggy ground, and it might look quite pretty, but it's a nasty little critter because it has this sort of sticky substance on, and basically any insect or fly that lands on it gets stuck and then eventually gets devoured by the little plant. Nice little chap. This really is quite a peaceful little track down here. Now, the area where the lodge used to be is on the left hand side. Now, the groomkeeper's job was to, well, preserve deer and collect rents on behalf of the Crown from owners of estates lying within the neighbourhood of the walk, and also to take care of the wooded enclosures. So as well as having a house or lodge, they'd also have, say, an area of land, possibly 6-7 acres or so they could keep cattle and pigs. Well, there was certainly a lodge here in the 1770s. Indeed, there may well have been a building a lot earlier than that. But it became derelict in the Second World War, when this whole area was taken over by the War Department. It was used as a bombing range, which I've explained before in a previous video. And whether it was bombed on, I don't know. But after the war, everything was taken away, and there's no real evidence of it as such still here. If you look at an old map of the area, there was a small pond to the northeast. Well, there's just a gully there now, and as I said, if I pan round here, this is where the building was. It was quite a substantial building. I did find a photograph of it on the internet. Now, having said there's no evidence of the building, there is something here, and I think this is just the remains of a concrete base of an animal shed that was just to the north of the lodge. And you've got this lovely little oasis of green, an open area, sort of right in the middle of this heathland. And I think this may well have been a meadow, and it may well have been planted up with trees. There are a few fruit trees on the left hand side there, but it is a lovely, really pretty little area. As I said, you've got this, and then it's surrounded by that traditional heathland of sand and heather and gorse. Now just coming down into another little valley, and on my right hand side is the edge of PITTS Wood, a lovely old enclosure established between 1772 and 1775, and there are some tremendous oak tree specimens in there, and a little, well, I say it's a little stream to cross over. Actually, there is a little bit of water. I imagine this would be quite popular for ponies. Quite brown in colour, and a lot of that's to do with the iron deposits slightly further upstream. Well, this is as far south as I'm going to go on the walk. I'm on the sort of southeast corner of PITTS Wood. The wood got its name from John Pitt, who was a one-time surveyor general of the woods and the New Forest. Now, just by me here on the right is what looks like an old gravestone, and well, it's actually made of metal. And there are a few of these floating around the New Forest, 5 or 6 I think. I know there's another one at the Wilverley enclosure. And what it tells us here, that PITTS Wood was enclosed in 1775. That means the area was set aside for trees. They would have planted the trees and then enclosed it with a bank and a ditch and a fence on top of the bank, and that would keep all the livestock out and protect the trees while they were growing. And then usually 30 odd years or so later, they'd take the fencing down, and that's what this means here, thrown out 1816. That means that's when the fencing was taken down and the livestock then could go back into that area. The trees were big enough to be able to survive any damage. And then it says it was re-enclosed again in 1903, so that must have been another planting. But you don't see many of these around. It was only Gerald Lascelles, I think that's how you pronounce it, when he was deputy surveyor. He put these up when he enclosed an area of woodland, and the reason you don't see so many of them is that during his time in charge there weren't many areas being enclosed. We're now heading in a westerly direction, so I've got PITTS Wood here on my right. Now, as I said earlier, it was predominantly oak, but in the 1960s a fair few oak were cut down and replaced by conifers and spruce, and particularly on the southern side. Interestingly, they've done a lot of thinning out here recently. In fact, further down we'll see something like a third of the conifers were removed. It'll be quite interesting to see what effect that has on the ground in future years, because those trees would have soaked up quite a bit of water. Well, we're very much on the homeward leg now, just come out of PITTS Wood, and this little valley area here is called Thorns Bottom, and there was a little stream that came out of it that will join on to Ditchend Brook, and the brook is in the far distance. I'm guessing where you can see all those ponies and cattle congregating, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of water left. And then just panning around here, this little area here is called, and I'm not kidding, burnt balls. Now, often you'll see the name balls in a name in the forest. That usually means sandy knoll, and burnt, well, perhaps there was a fire here in the past, but yeah, burnt balls. Back in 2014 it appeared in the top 20 list of silly or funny place names in Dorset and the New Forest, in a poll run by the Bournemouth Echo newspaper. I guess it must have been a slow news day that day. Oops, a bee. I'd leave it. Oh, we're obviously annoying a bee. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment. We're being pestered by a bee here. We've had a super walk today. It's surprising what you can find in the forest if you know where to look. So we're off to the Fighting Cocks at God's Hill for a pint of best. Perfect end to a walk on a fairly hot day. So until we meet again, thanks for watching and cheerio.